The wedding began with wind, soft, perfumed, a California afternoon pretending to be perfect. Golden chairs. Linen white enough to hurt the eyes. The ocean glittered like a mirror nobody dared touch. I stood near the last row, holding my small gift, a roll of silk wrapped in brown paper and tied with an old cotton thread. Everyone else carried boxes that shimmered. Mine looked like an apology. Someone whispered, "Who's she?" Another answered, "The aunt. The one from Oregon. The craft woman." Craft woman. It used to sting. Now it only reminded me I had survived long enough to earn gentler insults. Lily, my niece, my girl, floated down the aisle in a dress that sparkled like frost. Her smile trembled, but people called it joy. Beside her, Tyler, the founder, the visionary, the boy who thought recycling was a religion. I liked him once. Before he learned to love applause. The violin rose. The priest spoke. I felt the thread of my pulse, steady, slow, pulling me back years, Thomas's hand guiding mine across a loom. One line holds the next, grace. That's how cloth survives. He was gone now, dust and memory, but his voice lingered between the notes of the ceremony. Every promise I'd ever made was stitched somewhere inside this silk. When the vows ended, champagne followed like rain. Tables sparkled. Laughter cracked the air. I waited until the toasts were done, then walked toward the bride and her new family. Victoria, Tyler's mother, spotted me first. She wore silver sequins and that expression rich women perfect. Curiosity sharpened into contempt. "Oh, how sweet," she said, touching the roll in my hands. "A handmade gift. Isn't that adorable?" Her tone glazed the word adorable with poison. I smiled. "Every stitch has a story." "Oh, I'm sure," she murmured. "We'll find a rustic corner for it." People laughed. The polite kind, small, rehearsed. I felt Lily stiffen beside me. I wanted to whisper, "It's fine, darling. Let them giggle. Truth doesn't need an audience." But my throat stayed still. I placed the silk on the table, next to a pyramid of crystal boxes. The brown paper looked fragile against all that glass. Inside it, my husband's invention slept, a fabric threaded with invisible memory, a code no one could see. If only they knew what was woven beneath their fingers. At that moment, 30 seconds of quiet between speeches, Robert, one of the investors, lifted his glass and said, "To the future of sustainable fashion." Phones flashed. Tyler bowed slightly, and I saw the logo projected behind him, thread green. My money, my risk, my silence, all standing under someone else's name. Later, I escaped to the terrace. The air smelled of salt and lavender candles. Voices drifted through the open doors, soft, smug, full of champagne confidence. I leaned on the railing, let the wind comb my grey hair. There was a faint metallic taste on my tongue, like the edge of scissors. "Why do you let them talk like that, Grace?" Thomas again, inside my head. "Because, my love, sometimes a woman gains more by being underestimated than by being praised." I turned the roll of silk in my hands. The thread caught a shaft of light, thin, silver, alive. A tiny reflection pulsed where the code hid beneath the weave. The technology had cost us half a lifetime. It had given me the rest. The door opened behind me. Lily's voice, bright but nervous. "Aunt Grace, you disappeared. Everyone's looking for you." I needed a bit of air. She hesitated, glancing at the gift. "Mom thinks it's too plain." "I know. Don't mind her. She just doesn't understand value without price tags." Lily laughed, then bit her lip. "Tyler says he wants you to see the factory next month." "I've seen enough factories, sweetheart." Her perfume, white rose and worry. When she hugged me, I felt the tremor in her ribs. She whispered, "Promise me you'll come to the gala though. It means a lot." I nodded. "Every stitch, a promise. Remember." She smiled. Then the crowd swallowed her again. Inside, the orchestra started a jazzy tune. Victoria's laughter cut through like broken glass. I stayed on the terrace, watching the horizon darken to copper. Somewhere deep in my chest, an old ache uncoiled. 15 years of keeping quiet, investing under aliases, letting men take bows for the work Thomas and I had built. The industry loved its myths. The humble widow suited them fine. But tonight, something shifted. Maybe it was the way Victoria's diamond ring flashed like a warning. Maybe it was the hollow pride on Tyler's face. Or maybe I was simply tired of being invisible. A gust of wind brushed my cheek, warm, then cold, like a hand and a slap. The silk rustled softly in my arms. Threads whispering, "We remember." I whispered back, "So do I." Below, waves struck the rocks. Steady rhythm, same as the shuttle of a loom. I imagined each crest carrying a question. How long will you let them own your silence? I didn't have the answer yet. But I knew the moment would come, at the gala, at the unveiling, wherever their pride burned brightest. That's where truth would thread its way out. For now, I folded the silk once, twice. The fabric felt warm, alive almost. Inside its pattern slept the evidence of everything they had stolen. And as the music rose behind me, I smiled into the dark. They thought I was just a woman with a hobby. They had no idea I was holding their empire, stitch by hidden stitch. Love begins like a whisper. You miss it if you rush. You hear it if you work with your hands. I met Thomas in a room that smelled of oil and wool. A student lab. A cranky loom. A professor who said we were wasting time. Thomas disagreed with everyone. Softly. He had farmer shoulders and mathematician eyes. Friction is just a stubborn story, he told me. Change the story. You change the world. We sat on crates. We drew on cardboard. We counted heat loss with a blunt pencil. Outside, winter gnawed the windows. Inside, our breath fogged and vanished. He showed me patterns hidden in wear and tear. How fibers fail. How they heal under pressure. Let cloth learn to remember, he said. That sentence hooked my heart. We married in a courthouse with 2 witnesses. I wore a blue dress I stitched at midnight. He wore the tie his mother hated. We had $10 after lunch. We thought it was plenty. Our first shop stood beside a cannery. The air tasted of tin and salt. Machines rattled like angry teeth. We worked by a single lamp. The bulb hummed like a bee. We bought seconds, rolls nobody wanted. We unrolled, measured, salvaged. I found rhythms in the floors. Thomas built small jigs from scrap wood. He said, "Tools are love made visible." On Sundays we walked to the river. We carried thermoses and cheap croissants. We argued about design and God. We decided both required trust. Years passed like spools. Some fat, some thin. We learned which to keep, which to throw away. Then came the diagnosis. A doctor with a gentle voice. A scan that glowed wrong. The room smelled like disinfectant and fear. We pretended it was temporary. We worked harder. We spoke less. We slept holding hands like castaways. The night tasted of metal again. He asked for a promise. "Don't stop making," he said. "Don't sell your name for applause." I nodded. I broke almost every rule except that one. On his last good day we finished the prototype. A thread that could carry a whisper. Memory in the weave. Heat signatures mapped like constellations. I tied the knot with clumsy fingers. He laughed. Then he cried without sound. I kissed his knuckles. He said, "It will outlive me." I said, "So will you." After the funeral, the town brought casseroles. I ate 3 bites of everything. Texture blurred to paste. Grief flattened flavor. Only tea had edges. Bills arrived like hail. I sold 3 machines and 1 ring. I kept the small iron that hissed. I kept his notes with coffee stains. I kept the habit of early mornings. Lily came to me at 8. Her mother, my sister, was already a rumor. The child stood on the porch in red boots. She smelled of rain and crayons. She said, "Are you the brave aunt?" I said, "Sometimes." She shrugged and walked inside. She touched the loom with reverence. She listened to the shuttle sing. Children recognize devotion by sound. We grew a life from second chances. Breakfast was oatmeal and violets. Afternoons were homework and hems. Evenings, stories about threads traveling time. I wove her name into a scarf. I taught her rules. Measure twice. Ease matters. Keep scissors sharp. Apologize before sleep. I also taught her mischief. Hide a stitch in every gift. Plant kindness without credit. Watch who notices. Merry curiosity, not charm. Lily bloomed faster than I expected. She read catalogs like poems. She sketched dresses on grocery receipts. She built towers from bobbins. The cat slept on her blueprints. We visited factories as field trips. She counted hands at each station. She asked about wages. She frowned at locked exits. Her questions stitched my spine tighter. When she turned 16, I opened the safe. Inside, our patent, faded and proud. Also letters from buyers with big smiles. They loved our story more than our math. Stories sell. Math saves. Remember that. A conglomerate knocked with sugar words. They waived terms and timelines. They promised scale with soul. I smelled solvent under the perfume. But I also smelled a way out. I sold the company, not the conscience. I kept the royalty clause. I kept the right to audit. I kept 3 boxes of raw silk. I kept my husband's notebooks. The money looked obscene in my browser. Numbers without texture. Silence without weight. I closed the laptop and cried. Then I built a trust with his initials. GH Trust was my shelter and spear. We invested in unsexy miracles. Water recycling. Safer dyes. Factories with windows that open. I learned to be invisible on purpose. I took the back elevator. I wore navy and flats. I let men over-explain my fabric to me. I nodded and wrote the checks. Sometimes I signed as Harbor. Sometimes as M. Stone. Always as myself, inwardly. Identity, like warp, stays hidden. Weft is what crowds see. Investors asked for stories, not audits. Founders fled from inspections. Slide decks promised justice by algorithm. I preferred scars over slides. Scars at least tell the truth. When Threadgreen appeared, it felt different. Young faces. Clear eyes. Samples that didn't lie to the hand. A line that behaved under stress. Tyler pitched in a borrowed suit. He said the word repair without flinching. He didn't blink at clauses on labor. He smiled at the audit schedule. I thought maybe. We wired a small seed. We sent a list of shop floor standards. We asked for quarterly windows. He sent pictures of sunlight and safety rails. We sent more. Months later, I saw the brand on a celebrity. My stomach clenched. Hype eats standards for breakfast. I called, softly. He answered, brightly. Growth is good, he said. Yes, I said, when it grows roots, not fog. He laughed. I listened to the laughter too long. My doubt lay down and slept. Lily graduated with honors. She wore a dress she made at dawn. Her hem was imperfect. I cried anyway. She rolled her eyes and hugged me. We celebrated with lemon bars and cheap wine. She told me she loved a boy named Tyler. My fork froze on the plate. The founder? I asked. She nodded, cheeks blazing. He came for tea. He carried peonies and ambition. He saw the loom and called it vintage. He asked how long I had done crafts. I breathed. I smiled. I poured more tea. Later, I opened the ledger. The numbers obeyed. Margins held. Audits passed. Ships were on time, clean. Love makes hope greedy. I wanted the world to be worthy of her heart. I wanted my husband's work to bless her days. I wanted thread green to mean what it claimed. Wanting is a lovely danger. Victoria visited next. She wore a raincoat that cost a mortgage. Her perfume barged ahead of her voice. She glanced at my hands, not my eyes. Such cozy little place, she said. I showed her the quilt on the wall. She said, "Ah, folk." I said, "Yes, folk who survived floods and winters." She smiled the way knives smile. I hid the urge to sew her to the doormat. At night, I lay awake counting breaths. The house ticked like a cooling engine. The loom stood like a thin, patient animal. I heard Thomas again. Soft, steady. "Check the seams, Grace." I checked. The samples still behaved. But the invoices felt swollen. More units. Less time. Math grinding its teeth. I wrote Tyler. He replied with confetti emojis and a slide. Emojis are not contracts. Slides are not windows. I scheduled a visit. Before the trip, Lily brought invitations. Cursive gold. A gala by the bay. "Please come," she said. "I want you there when the line debuts." I said yes. Because love keeps showing up, even when suspicious. Because promises matter more in public. Because girls need elders in the room. Because threads remember. On the morning of the wedding we baked scones. Butter sang in the pan. Lemon zest perfumed the walls. She hummed off-key. I pretended not to notice. We packed the silk in brown paper. I tied it with an old cotton thread. My hands shook. Not from age. From meaning. In the car, the ocean winked through cypress. I thought of river walks with Thomas. I thought of Lily's red boots on my porch. I thought of that first lab, the cold air. We had built a future none of US could hold. At the venue, the world glittered too loudly. I walked slower than the music. I placed the silk among the crystal. I felt the code hum under my palms. I whispered, "Behave, little witness." Love is patient. Love is also a ledger. It notes who protects and who pretends. It balances over time. It demands a reckoning. I kissed Lily's cheek. She smelled of white roses and nerves. "Every stitch a promise," I said. She squeezed my fingers. "Yes, Auntie. I remember." I thought she did. I hoped she did. I prayed the room would teach her gently. But rooms with chandeliers rarely do gentle. They do spectacle. I stood beneath the lights and smiled. I told myself not to rush. Threads break when yanked. They hold when guided. I would guide, not yank. And yet, under the clink of glass, under the speeches, I heard something else. A seam beginning to rip. I didn't sleep that night. The hotel air smelled of lilies and dust, like wealth pretending to be clean. My hands kept replaying the moment Victoria laughed at my gift. A small sound, but sharp enough to cut memory. Lily texted hearts and apologies. I typed 3 dots, then erased them. No words could mend what she hadn't meant to break. At dawn I sat by the window, watching fog crawl over the bay. Each wave looked like a thought half formed. The silk roll lay on the table beside the untouched coffee. Its thread gleamed faintly, alive in the grey light. Every time I blinked, I saw Thomas's hands again. Steady, clever, warm. "You can forgive cruelty faster than ignorance," he used to say. "Ignorance at least can learn. Cruelty just enjoys itself." 2 weeks later, the invitation came. Thread Green Annual Gala. The Reborn line. My name, elegantly printed, though I'd never told them how to spell it right. I ran a thumb along the edge of the paper. It smelled of ink and arrogance. I called Lily. I got your invitation. Her voice was bright, tired. I'm glad. Tyler's so excited. We're launching a new fabric tonight. You'll love it. I already might, I said softly. She didn't hear the double meaning. I dressed in dark green silk, the color of patience. Same pearls I wore the day Thomas died. They carried his fingerprint in each imperfection. I liked that. Nothing perfect survives long. The ballroom sparkled with its own ego. Glass walls. Silver tables. Too much scent in the air. The crowd hummed with the electricity of money about to congratulate itself. Victoria hovered near the stage, lips tight with anticipation. She'd found a new way to look down without moving her chin. When Lily spotted me, her face softened. She hugged me quickly, careful not to wrinkle her dress. You look beautiful, I said. You always say that. Because it's true. Her eyes darted toward Tyler. I'm glad you came, Aunt Grace. You'll see how far we've come. I smiled, but something inside me whispered. How far from what? They dimmed the lights. Spotlights swept across the ceiling like restless ghosts. Tyler took the stage, microphone gleaming like a sword. He thanked sponsors, applauded his team, spoke of transparency and ethics. Words that sounded polished enough to hide dust underneath. I listened. Every sentence had the faint perfume of marketing. Not lies exactly, just carefully ironed truths. Then he unveiled the new fabric, reborn fibered. Projected behind him was a magnified weave, glossy, flawless, eerily familiar. My heartbeat slowed. That texture. That sheen. The microscopic pattern of code within the thread. It was Thomas's design. Our design. Renamed. Rebranded. Reborn without permission. The applause hit like hail. I clapped twice, softly, out of rhythm. My pulse whispered, check the seams, Grace. After the show, I found a quiet corner near the kitchen doors. The smell of roasted salmon floated out, heavy with butter and deceit. I opened my phone and scrolled through an old encrypted folder. Patent files. Test images. Every timestamp older than Tyler's company. He hadn't copied. He had taken. My throat tightened, half rage, half heartbreak. If it had been some stranger, I might have forgiven. But he was marrying the girl I raised. He was living inside the story I built and calling it his. A waiter brushed past. Ma'am, would you like a drink? Water, please. Cold. The glass sweated in my hand. I envied it, how it could shiver without consequence. Later that night, I walked home through the marina. The air was salt and gasoline. Lights on the boats wobbled like half-formed regrets. I thought of Thomas again, sitting in that hospital chair, whispering, "Don't sell your name for applause." I didn't sell it, my love, I murmured. They stole it while I looked away. I reached my apartment, small and orderly. The clock ticked with polite precision. On the wall, our first fabric sample hung inside a cheap wooden frame. Tiny code still flickered when the light hit it just right. A memory that refused to fade. I opened the safe. Inside, patents, trust papers, and a metal USB with the old data. I turned it over like a coin. The etched initials, TH, caught the lamplight. Tomorrow, I said aloud. Because the night deserved at least one promise. Morning brought clarity and coffee. I called James Sullivan, my advisor, my reluctant confessor. He answered with a sigh that smelled of spreadsheets. Grace, it's been years. What's wrong? Someone's playing with ghosts, James. Which kind? The kind that pay dividends. I explained briefly. The stolen tech. The company. The connection. He whistled low. Grace, do you want to sue? No. I want to know how deep the rot goes. I can dig. Quietly. He chuckled. You taught me quiet. That evening, Lily came by. She looked tired, the shine already peeling from her happiness. Her heels clicked like regret. Tyler says you left early. Did you enjoy the gala? It was educational. She frowned. Auntie, please don't start. He works so hard. I know. Hard work isn't always honest work. Why are you being like this? Because, my dear, I've seen good men drown in shallow water. Out loud I said only, I'm proud of you. Half a truth is sometimes kinder than a full one. She smiled weakly. Then she glanced at the framed fabric on the wall. That pattern looks like our new line, she said. My heart paused. One breath. Suspended. Yes, I said. It does. When she left, I locked the door, turned off the lights. I sat in the dark and listened to the hum of the city. Elevators sighed. A siren whined in the distance. Somewhere below, a couple argued in Spanish. Life kept weaving itself. Messy, noisy, relentless. I closed my eyes. Threads of memory crossed behind them. Thomas, the loom, the girl with red boots, the laughing woman in sequins. Each thread different. Each one frayed at the edges. But they all met here, in my small apartment, asking the same question. How much longer will you stay silent? I whispered back. Until silence costs more than truth. Then I opened the window. Wind lifted the curtain like a flag of surrender, or maybe a challenge. I touched the fabric sample again, cool beneath my fingertips. It pulsed once, catching moonlight. And I knew the moment of reckoning had begun. Morning light came thin and deliberate, slicing through the blinds like new thread through old cloth. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cooling beside a folder thick with ghosts. The air smelled of roasted beans and decisions. James had sent the report overnight. Concise, brutal. Numbers, contracts, signatures. A familiar corporate script with my fingerprints written all over it. Threadgreen had multiplied its profits by outsourcing. Cheap, hidden, offshore. A cluster of factories in Bangladesh under a borrowed certification. 14-hour shifts. Children small enough to fit between the looms. The data whispered louder than any scream. I pressed my palm over the table to steady it. You wanted to build something clean, I thought. Now look at what wears your husband's name. My phone buzzed. Lily's name glowed like a small mercy. I stared at it and didn't answer. Love should never have to sound cheerful through a lie. By noon, I had packed a small bag. One roll of fabric. One folder of proof. A woman doesn't need much to start a fire, only truth and the right timing. The gala's press preview would happen that evening. I planned to attend. Quietly, until silence became dishonest. The drive down the coast felt longer than memory. Fog hugged the highway. The ocean on my right looked like molten steel. Each mile hummed like a sewing machine working too fast. I parked outside the venue, a renovated shipyard turned event hall. It smelled of salt, paint, and pretense. Inside, banners floated from the ceiling. Innovation meets integrity. How convenient, I thought, when innovation eats integrity for breakfast. A young assistant greeted me with polite confusion. Ma'am, are you part of the press? In a way, I said. I'm here to tell a story. She blinked, smiled the way people do when they sense danger but can't name it. Right this way, Ms. Hamilton. The hall glowed in warm gold. Cameras perched like vultures. Victoria hovered near the stage again, rehearsing Pride. Tyler moved through the crowd like a man convinced he'd invented gravity. I stood near the back, close enough to listen, far enough to breathe. Lily was on stage too, reading from a teleprompter about ethical sourcing. Her voice trembled at the word ethical. She felt it, even if she didn't yet understand why. When the speech ended, applause rolled through the hall, heavy as surf. Tyler motioned for the lights to dim. A massive screen came alive with the brand video. Smiling workers. Sunlit fields. The sound of children laughing. Perfectly timed, perfectly false. I waited until the first slide showed the fabric close-up, the weave that carried Thomas's secret code. Then I stepped forward. Could we pause the video, please? My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Age can be volume when you've earned it. The crowd turned. Lily froze mid-smile. Tyler blinked as if I'd appeared from another decade. Victoria's hand clenched around her champagne flute. I walked to the front slowly, heels tapping the stage rhythm Thomas once loved. I held up the brown paper roll, the same gift they'd mocked at the wedding. Some of you saw this fabric before, I said. You called it quaint. A ripple of nervous laughter. I unwrapped it. The silk shimmered under the spotlights, silver veins alive with memory. Let me show you something. I took my phone, opened the scanner app, passed it across the weave. A soft beep. Then, projected on the big screen, a line of data scrolled out. Timestamps, GPS coordinates, factory IDs. Images followed, narrow rooms, small faces, hands raw from bleach. Gasps cracked through the audience. Victoria whispered. What is she doing? Tyler stammered. This is, doctored, some kind of mistake. I looked straight at him. No, Tyler. It's a pattern. The pattern you built your fortune on. Silence fell like ash. Somewhere a camera clicked. Truth loves witnesses. Lily covered her mouth. I saw recognition flicker. Shock, shame, something breaking. My heart broke with hers. Quietly. I turned toward the crowd. This design was created years ago by my husband, Thomas Hamilton. He dreamed of a fabric that could remember its own making. A technology meant to protect workers, not hide them. When he died, I safeguarded it. I invested in companies that valued transparency. Until one forgot the meaning of the word. The screen behind me still showed the factory images, looped endlessly like guilt. People shifted in their seats. Some left. Some filmed. The hum of panic replaced applause. Tyler stepped closer, jaw tight. You had no right to ambush me. And you had no right to steal what you didn't understand, I replied. His anger smelled of fear and cologne. He looked for Victoria. She looked for an exit. Security hesitated at the edge of the stage. Lily walked to me instead. Her voice broke. Is this true, Aunt Grace? I nodded. Her hand trembled against her bouquet. But why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to see who he was, not what he owned. She cried softly. The audience watched, 100 strangers eavesdropping on the cost of silence. I'm sorry, she whispered. So am I said, for letting it go on this long. When it ended, the lights stayed low. Reporters swarmed. Tyler vanished behind a curtain of security. Victoria tried to smile for the cameras, failed. The brand collapsed in real time, stock tickers bleeding red across phone screens. I stood alone at the edge of the stage, exhausted and oddly calm. James texted one word. Done. Outside, the night had cooled. The sea smelled of iron and rain. I walked toward the pier, shoes in hand. Each step echoed like the beat of a shuttle. One line, then another, weaving closure. A gull cried above the water. It sounded like release. I leaned on the railing and let the wind undo my hair. The air tasted of salt, victory, and the first hint of peace. Behind me, sirens wailed, police or press or both. Ahead, the horizon waited, threadbare and honest. I whispered to the sea, you can hide greed under silk, but truth will always show through the seams. The waves answered with applause that belonged only to the brave. Morning came quietly, as if the city itself felt embarrassed. Headlines bloomed like weeds. Eco-empire exposed. Sustainable lie unraveled. I read none of them. Truth doesn't need my approval to exist. The kettle whistled. Steam curled like memory. I poured my tea and let the warmth slide into my bones, tired, satisfied bones that had finally done their work. The phone buzzed again. James. His message was brief. Stock frozen. Bored, resigning. You were right. I smiled, not triumph, not vengeance, something gentler, older. Vindication is only sweet for a moment. Then it tastes like dust. 3 months later, I moved south. A town called Arroyo Vista, where hills roll like folded linen. The air smells of citrus and humility. I rented a small studio, 1 window, 1 table, 1 loom. The landlord asked what I'd make. I said, something that holds. I hung our old photograph on the wall, Thomas and I, smudged with dye, laughing like fools who thought the world was listening. Now it was. Late, but listening. Lily called once a week at first. Then twice. Then she began to visit. Each time she brought something made by hand, a stitched scarf, a mended tote, bread still warm in the bag. Her eyes had changed. Fewer sparkles, more light. One afternoon, she arrived with a folder. Her voice trembled, not with fear but purpose. I'm starting a new collective, she said. Local women. Small scale. Transparent supply. She paused. I'd like to name it after you. I laughed softly. No need for monuments, dear. Make it after what matters. Grace, not my name. She nodded. Her tears looked exactly like mine used to. Clear, stubborn, cleansing. The first students came in June. 12 women from shelters and halfway houses. Their hands shook at the machines. They were afraid to ruin things. I told them ruin is how fabric learns courage. We worked in silence, then laughter. Threads tangled, fingers pricked, songs hummed off key. The room smelled of starch and hope. Every mistake turned into a pattern we decided to keep. By August, the walls bloomed with color. Indigo, rust, bone white. We named the place the Hamilton Studio. Not for ego. For the man who believed cloth could remember kindness. For the girl who believed it too. Sometimes I still dream of the old company. The boardrooms. The noise. The applause that felt like hail. But mostly, I dream of the shuttle. That soft click returning home after each throw. The rhythm never left me. One evening, Lily and I walked to the farmer's market. The air smelled of bread and apricots. A young reporter stopped us. Are you Mrs. Hamilton? She asked. I was, I said. I wrote about you after the scandal, she stammered. I just wanted to say, that story changed how I see my work. I thanked her. Then I bought lilies from an old man who wrapped them in yesterday's news. A small mercy. Paper once used for lies now protecting something fragile and alive. At night, I sit by the window and sew small things. Napkins, scarves, nothing grand. I use leftover thread from years ago. Some of it still carries the microscopic code Thomas designed. A secret signature the world can't erase. When the moonlight hits just right, it glows faintly, silver veins under my fingertips. I trace them, whispering, still here. The loom hums softly, a heartbeat with purpose. Outside, crickets keep time. Sometimes I talk to Thomas. Not aloud, just enough for the air to remember. We did it, love. We made something that lasted. Not fortune. Not fame. Something steadier. The fabric of decency, patched and passed on. Last week, a letter arrived from Bangladesh. Handwritten. Careful English. Dear Mrs. Grace, my sister used to work in the factory you showed on screen. Now she studies textile design at a local school. Thank you. I cried, a quiet, grateful kind. The kind that doesn't hurt, only softens. I framed that letter beside the patent. 2 pieces of paper holding opposite ends of the same thread. The invention and its redemption. This morning, Lily brought a child, her daughter, my namesake. Little Grace. 3 years old, hair like honey, eyes like clean sky. She touched the loom with solemn awe. "What's that, Grandma Grace?" "A storyteller," I said. "It remembers." She nodded, serious. Then she reached for the glowing thread, whispering, "It's shining." "Yes," I said, "because it's honest." The child laughed, a sound lighter than silk. Her fingers tangled in the thread, fearless. I felt Thomas smile somewhere in the quiet. Life had folded neatly again. When evening came, we lit candles. The scent of beeswax and citrus drifted through the studio. Shadows trembled like fabric before the cut. Lily played a record. Old jazz. Slow. Imperfect. I poured tea, honey thick and golden. For a long while, no one spoke. Silence is softer when it's shared. Then Lily said, "Do you ever regret exposing them?" I thought about it. The lawsuits. The headlines. The bridges burned. I thought about the child in the letter. About the students learning stitches instead of silence. "No," I said. "Regret is for those who choose comfort over conscience." Later, when they'd gone, I stepped outside. The air was cool and smelled faintly of jasmine. The sky above Arroyo Vista shimmered with stars, small, persistent lights, each one a fragment of a larger pattern. I looked down at my hands, scarred, steady, still capable. Every wrinkle a map of survival. Every vein a thread of history. I whispered into the dark. "Thomas, we finished the cloth." Wind rustled through the citrus trees, warm and approving. The studio behind me glowed faintly, the light spilling through the window like silk unfurling. I turned off the lamp. The hum of the loom lingered a moment longer, then stopped. Peace settled. Full. Earned. Honest. The world, for once, felt properly woven.